important stuff in the world. The most important stuff, of course, being the Trinity, our faith, the resurrection of the Lord, the moral life. And today we focus on life itself. We're going to do one of our Why Are You Pro-Choice shows. So we ask that the callers only be pro-choice people. And I don't think it comes as a surprise to anybody. And if it does come as a surprise to you, I hope you will reconsider because so many pro-choice people listen to this program, because folks of all kinds like to listen to talk of faith, talk of God, and measure it against their own experiences. We're delighted to have the audience of atheists we have, agnostics that we have, of all kinds of folks that we have. And we know that we have a large pro-choice audience as well, and we welcome them, and we love conversation with them. And so this is their chance to call and tell us why they're pro-choice. So if you're a pro-choice person, the number is 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH. And our guest, of course, is the man who wrote the book called Persuasive Pro-Life, Trent Horn. Hello, Trent.
Hello, Cy.
You feel ready to talk to some pro-choice people today?
Yes, I hope they'll certainly call in. One thing that just occurred to me, though, when you asked for the show, was there anything on my mind that relates to pro-life? I think that there's a lot of conversations people are having now about the value of human life. If you think about it, when we're dealing with the issue of this pandemic, the question is, what lengths will we go to protect a human life? When is it worthwhile to do this? What lengths are appropriate? What lengths are excessive? What are proportional? What are disproportional? But I believe that a very appropriate and proportional length we ought to go for any human life is to make it illegal to directly kill that human life. I think that's quite obvious for any human being, regardless of how old or young they are. Now, there's people who will disagree with me because my view entails we ought to make it illegal to directly kill the unborn through abortion. So I think if many people now have on their minds, including those who would try to say pro-lifers have been inconsistent lately, I would say that those on the other end who have vigorously argued for state interventions and lockdowns to protect human life, yet see no need to protect human life in the womb, I would say that's a very gross inconsistency, one that deserves a conversation about.
And that's why we're holding the phones for you if you're pro-choice. For our Catholic pro-life friends, if you would just hold on for another day, give us an opportunity to have these conversations, because they are very important conversations. And you know what? I'm going to be honest with you. I do feel, I hope not inordinate, but I do feel a little bit of pride in the fact that we do this, because there's not that many places in media where you can just get an honest conversation about issues like abortion, issues like euthanasia, suicide, issues like the treatment of the disabled, including in some ways the euthanasia and suicide debate is a debate about how to treat the disabled. We just don't have that many honest conversations about this. We have a lot of people talking past one another. And so I think that's part of why pro-choice people feel comfortable to call too. If you are a pro-choice person and you're not familiar with us, Trent and I are both entirely pro-life. Me for emotional reasons, Trent for intellectual reasons. Well, that's probably not exactly accurate, but
I am one of those heartless pro-lifers that's only following my programming.
Oh, you're following your programming. All right. Mm-hmm. But, we'd love to have those conversations with you. We're always grateful when you call. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. Nick, we got to take some signs down here in the studio, because when we're doing the pledge drive last week, they put up the pledge number literally everywhere in the studio. So I can't look anywhere without seeing it. They don't want me to forget the number. So now
why don't they
we should
just make
take
you
them down.
Glasses with a
yeah, with
like
the
a
right in
visor.
front of me, it would just be floating.
You
out
wouldn't
there.
need to put it all over the studio. You could just have it hanging from the brim of your visor.
Yeah, I should do that. I should get a pledge drive visor. So 888-318-7884, the number 888-318-7884. It's you're right that this is a time when we're talking about life issues more, and there's a certain way in which I think you never want to say that, like, oh, hey, this pandemic is great, but there's always, things have good and bad consequences. Even bad things often have, side consequences that are good. Even good things often have side consequences that are bad. So I think this conversation about life is actually really good. I am always impressed with the governor of New York, Mr. Cuomo. when he talks quite fiercely about we don't want to lose anybody, and it's a tragedy to lose everybody, and each life is precious, and it's worth our efforts. And then I think, but this is a guy who like literally celebrated a bill that would allow killing children right up to the moment of birth.
Right until birth, yeah.
Like that seems to me a tremendous disconnect. And maybe he'll repent of that, given that he's got this newfound reverence for life.
Here's the other disconnect that I've noticed, Cy, when it comes to those who defend legal abortion and have conversations about lockdowns and combating this pandemic. That those who defend the lockdowns will say, rightly so, we ought to protect human life. We should protect human beings. Human life is valuable. It's precious. And critics of lockdowns will say, that's good, but what you're proposing could cause human suffering in its own right, or at the very least, it could be economically burdensome to others to protect human lives. And then the defenders of the lockdowns will say, we shouldn't put a price tag on human lives, even if it's very economically burdensome, even if even people lose their jobs, even if these bad things happen, it is worth it to protect human lives. And yet, Cy, this just seems like such a bizarro world, because I can imagine on this show 6 months ago having a conversation about abortion, and the other person online will say, yeah, I know abortion is bad, but do you want some girl to grow up in poverty? Or do you want someone to be kicked out of school? So it's just so strange to me that before this pandemic is happening, people will defend the direct killing of the unborn because protecting the unborn would lead to economic and social hardships for some people. And yet those very same people will defend tremendous social and economic hardships to protect others from indirectly being killed by the spread of a disease.
Right.
So it just seems like there's a massive disconnect on that point, where before pro-life advocates are accused of being these fetal obsessed persons who don't care about life after birth. And now some pro-life advocates who say the lockdowns are too much are said there you put profits before people. So it's like, well, which is it here? Rather, it seems to be you only seem to care about life after it's born rather than before. And maybe you have a legitimate reason to say, well, it's not really human life before birth. But we can talk about that.
Yes. 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884, but only if you are a pro-choice person. I want to be clear about what we mean by a pro-choice person. If you're a person who believes that, suicide is acceptable sometimes, well, then you believe we'll put you in the pro-choice category, because if you're making some situations where you think suicide's all right, that's somebody who doesn't believe that isn't fully pro-life. At least in our way of understanding. I'm not trying to say any of this to be pejorative or anything. I'm just trying to be descriptive so you know. Because I want someone to know, like, well, I don't believe in abortion in the last trimester, but I do in the first 2 trimesters. Does that make me pro-choice? Yes, that makes you pro-choice. If even on, I believe that you should be able to have an abortion in the first, 2 weeks of pregnancy. Well, that's still pro-choice. So we'd like you to feel free to give us a call, 888-318-7884. If, on the other hand, you don't believe in that in a legalized abortion at any stage, if you don't believe in taking the lives of the vulnerable or the sick or the disabled directly at any stage, that makes you a pro-life person, and you'll have to just enjoy the show today and enjoy the conversation. 888-318-7884, the number. I think I'm going to go to the break first, Nick, and then we'll come back and we'll start taking calls. So callers, if you'll just hang on a couple minutes, we will be right back to take your calls on this day where we ask, why are you pro-choice?
We're waiting for your call. Grab that line and get on board.
Prayer is an opportunity to spend quality time with God. So pray from the heart. Let God know you trust Him, believe in Him, and most of all, that you love Him. My favorite prayer that I say many times a day is, Jesus, I trust in you. It is simple, but as we know from St. Faustina, it reaches His heart.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects home buyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
Are you a coffee drinker? If so, you can now enjoy a coffee roasted to perfection by the Carmelite monks of Wyoming. Delicious Mystic Monk coffee is roasted and prepared by monks in a hidden cloistered monastery and is available in over 25 varieties. All Mystic Monk coffees are works of perfection and labors of love. For more information on how to purchase Mystic Monk coffee, visit mysticmonkcoffee.com. That's mysticmonkcoffee.com.
You know what's easy to deliver to you right now in this time of the virus? Digital stuff. So in order to get more digital stuff out there to folks, magazines, books, all that kind of stuff you can listen to, they've got sales going on at shop.catholic.com. We've got a new digital book deal offering 5 titles for $25. They've packaged digital copies of the magazine so you can get past issues for less than $10 a year, or 8 years worth of digital issues for just $39.95. So just visit the ebook and magazine section at shop.catholic.com today, shop.catholic.com, and get your digital materials at great deals. Trent Horn is our guest, the author of many books, including Answering Atheism, Why We're Catholic, and Persuasive Pro-Life. He'll be taking the pro-life position today. You will, right? You're committed to that? You're not gonna switch on us during the show?
I am very committed to that. Though
All right.
sometimes when I teach other people to defend the pro-life position, I will take the pro-choice position as a devil's advocate kind of workshop experience for them. Sometimes actually when I go and speak at conferences, it's always fun when I'm there with other pro-life advocates like Stephanie Gray, for example, if we're at the same conference. We actually wanted to do this at the Students for Life conference, but it didn't work out this year, so maybe next year. We wanted to speak about, get up and do a mock conversation on abortion and just flip a coin and then just decide on the spot who would be pro-life and who would be pro-choice.
Oh, cool.
Based on that, because each of us have spoken with these advocates for a very long time. And, so we can almost articulate their position better than they can. So,
it would be interesting to hear if some pro-choice folks articulate the pro-life position. I wonder if there are many who can do so well. I mean, I suppose
only a few.
There's not
I've
that
ever seen.
There's not that probably not that many pro-life people who can do the opposite. Although you and Stephanie could. She's a superstar. She's great. A wonderful pro-life person. Mm-hmm. I got her up in my mind. I got her up there with you.
She's probably one of the only people around that I would have fill in for me when it comes to, especially doing like a debate, for example, or pro-life talk. But especially if I had a debate, I would have Steph fill in for me in a second.
And you know what? She's so smart and so good at what she does, and she's Canadian. Let's go to Daniel right now in Ironton, Ohio. Daniel, why are you pro-choice?
So I guess the hardest part for me when I talk to my buddies and things about this situation is where everybody draws their lines. So I guess I wanted to talk to you guys about that is,
sure.
Does pro-choice start at contraceptive? Does it start at when there's a heartbeat or when there's a positive pregnancy test? Or, I mean, can you be pro-life in any of those circumstances? Or, when women have rape cases and things like that? I guess it's hard for me when we're debating with my buddies. How do you draw the line of where am I pro-choice? It appears a lot of them say basically all that. If you're any of those, then you're pro-choice. Mm-hmm. If if it's after that, after contraceptive or something like that, then you would be pro-life, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Sure, Daniel. First, I'd say the term pro-life, there's not a universally agreed upon definition of the term. It's not a term that the magisterium of the Catholic Church uses, for example. It's more of a social term or a political term that's used to describe people who are opposed to legal abortion in varying forms. So people who identify as pro-life are going to have different views, just as people who identify as pro-choice are going to have different views. My personal definition of pro-life that I think is the most coherent is that pro-life means that you believe every human being has a right to life, and that every human being, every biological human being, has a legal right to life that ought to be protected, and if that human being is not protected under the law, they ought to be protected. So that definition of pro-life would mean that it is wrong to directly kill a human being at any stage of their development. And we would just ask, okay, when does the development of the human being begin? And if you look at the question from a strict biological standpoint, it's abundantly clear that the development of every biological human being begins at conception. For me, I mean, I could cite embryologists and textbooks, but I just make a very simple argument. From my friend Steve Wagner puts it this way: if it's growing, it's got to be alive. If it has human parents, it's got to be human. Human beings like you and me are valuable. And a little embryo or fetus, they're not like a clump of cells. They're a whole body because they can grow and develop into a mature member of a species. That's something that sperm can't do, egg can't do. So there are people, Daniel, who identify as pro-life who are in favor of contraception. There are non-Catholic, I know non-Catholic pro-life advocates who are in favor of contraception. It's not a position that I would endorse, the church would endorse, but there are pro-lifers who hold that view. But I would say to be pro-life, you have to say that every single human being has a right to life. So then we have to ask, well, what's a human being? I would say human being is any member of our species. So if you look at the words embryo and fetus, in medical textbooks, they say when it comes to human beings, a fetus is a human being from the 8th week of life until birth, and an embryo is a human being from conception until the 8th week of life. So I think we should treat all human beings equally, whether they're embryos, fetuses, infants, toddlers, and so on. So that's probably where I would put it. Does that make sense, or do you have another question to follow up, or?
I guess it does make sense to me, but the thing that I'm always wondering about is we always talk about the heartbeat bills, and everybody, pro-lifers want to get these heartbeat bills passed.
Sure.
And like you're saying, I would believe if you were pro-life that you would believe that as soon as you're pregnant at the moment, then that would be the moment you would be arguing for. So is that more about politics, the whole heartbeat thing?
Yes, Daniel, I believe that does relate to politics. So we have to remember, one must not make the perfect the enemy of the good. Even if you go to Pope St. John Paul II's encyclical, The Gospel of Life, in there, I think it's around paragraph 73, the Pope talks about how it is acceptable to advocate for abortion laws that restrict abortion, that are less than ideal, provided that your goal is to reduce the evil of abortion as much as you can. So it doesn't really do the unborn any good if you try to pass a law that just won't be passed. If a majority of people in a democratic republic like ours, if a majority of people don't support a law, it will end up getting repealed, it won't pass, or the legislators that do pass it will lose their seats and be replaced with people who will just repeal the law. So I think that a lot of pro-life advocates try to pass heartbeat bills, which would outlaw abortion after a fetal heartbeat can be detected, which is about 4 or 5 weeks into a pregnancy when it can be detected, maybe up to 6 or 7 weeks, but around that early time in the first trimester. I think, Daniel, the reason they pick that is because many pro-choice advocates will say if you try to outlaw abortion, outlaw killing a human being even from conception, you're going to try to outlaw birth control too. And I think as a practical feature, a lot of pro-life advocates don't want to make it seem like they're trying to outlaw birth control, because while there are a fair number of people in this country who want abortion to be illegal. I mean, 25% of people in this country want it totally or almost illegal. But there's way more people who support contraception than support abortion. So a favorite tactic of pro-choice advocates is to make it seem like, hey, these pro-lifers are going to take your birth control away. So if you say, look, this law says if you can detect a fetal heartbeat, you can't perform an abortion, that would save hundreds of thousands of lives of unborn children. At least 90% of abortions would be illegal. It wouldn't touch on contraception that a lot of people out there support. So you would save lives, and you would progress towards the good. And I think that also saying it's a heartbeat bill, it instills in people, they say, oh, wait, a fetus is a heartbeat, an embryo has a heartbeat? They start to see, wait, this isn't a clump of cells, it's a living human being. It's got a beating heart like I do. And it serves an educational aspect as well. So does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's basically me and my buddies debate this kind of thing all the time. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's where we all kind of hit a brick wall is, well, if I'm pro-choice, at what moment do we determine that you're pro-choice? Because if you're saying that it's an embryo, anytime after that, it can still be aborted. But for me, the hard thing for me is, I guess I would consider myself pro-choice. But then if I think about, a baby in the third trimester getting that seems really bad to me.
Yeah.
And then the way you said biologically, an embryo is basically still alive in the same thing. But for some reason, it seems softer to. I mean, I know that's a horrible way of explaining it, but
Well, Daniel, I think
sure.
I think I see where you're coming from, Daniel. I mean, when you think of a third trimester baby, a third trimester fetus in your mind, I'm sure you probably think it just looks like a miniature version of the Gerber baby, right? Arms and legs and little button nose and eyes. I'm sure a third trimester fetus just looks like a mini baby, right? In your mind?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it makes it, the thought of killing such a being is abhorrent to you. I would just caution you not to tie your affinity for the unborn or your desire to protect them to merely how they look. How we look doesn't determine our value. There's a lot of mannequins and robots that look like people, but they're not people. And then as you go back in time, in development, an unborn child, although I would tell you, go look up now ultrasound 12-week fetus, 10-week fetus. It's going to look like a miniature version of the third trimester fetus to you. Even when you go back to 4 or 5 weeks where you can't really discern a lot of human traits, the fact of the matter is it's still a human being. It's just in the process of developing. An analogy I like to use comes from Richard Stith. Do you remember Polaroid cameras, Daniel? Like Polaroid pictures? They're starting to come back now.
Daniel, Polaroids?
Daniel, you there?
Yeah, where you shake them and they.
Yeah, shake it
I
like a
gotcha.
Polaroid picture. yes.
Actually, Fujifilm has come out to say do not shake it like a Polaroid. They're extremely mad at Outcast about that.
Oh.
You are not actually supposed to shake it. They had a press release and everything. But if you remember, Daniel, if you just have a Polaroid picture, you took the Polaroid picture, and the instant it snapped, you looked at it, and it was just a brown smudge. It looked like a brown smudge. It didn't look like anything. But it was a picture of whatever you took. And if it was a picture of something rare or famous, it'd be really valuable to you, even though it doesn't look like it yet. It's there. It just hasn't developed enough for you to recognize it. And it's the same for the unborn. When they're just a few weeks old in the womb and they're just, they are a bunch of cells. We're a bunch of cells. But when they're a collection of cells, we have a hard time emotionally connecting. They're there. And you won't recognize them more until they develop more. But it's fully there. Just like how a Polaroid picture is fully there, it just needs to develop a bit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right,
So
thank you.
let's go down the. Oh, you're going to go ahead and cut me off. That's fine.
No,
Daniel, go ahead.
You know
That's
what,
fine.
Daniel,
I
you're-
didn't realize you had more, but you know what? Now I do kind of. I want to cut him off now.
Cy Kellett. I'm not even going to think of a thought experiment where you have to meet a fatal end at this point.
Okay,
This
all right.
show is ripe for them.
Well, let's let him. We got a couple minutes.
yeah,
Go
we got
ahead.
a couple minutes,
Go ahead,
Daniel. Go right ahead.
So I guess if we go down the road of where I kind of sit on it too is when you start talking about the well-being of the mother and maybe complications she's having with her pregnancy, or maybe maybe it was a rape case or something like that, and then sometimes pro-life people will say, well, there's adoption choices and things like that. But for me, that seems like a really, I guess, a choice for the mother to make on whether she can provide a good life for that child. And I know part of me says that adoption is an option, but then we have so many kids in adoption now that also seems like a sticky situation as well.
Let me offer two thoughts on that, Daniel. First, on a practical level, the children that we have a hard time placing in adoption now are usually in community adoption or foster care. And they're held in a kind of legal limbo because the parental rights of their own parents who were deemed unfit by the courts, maybe they're drug addicts, for example, or criminals, haven't been terminated, so they can't be adopted legally. Or they're older, they have behavioral issues, mental health issues, and many people aren't willing to adopt older children in community foster care many of them were wanted. They were from intended pregnancies. I will tell you that any infant that is put up for adoption today can be placed almost instantaneously. The wait to adopt a child, the average wait time is like somewhere around 5 to 10 years in the United States. That's why so many couples who want to adopt infants in the U.S. try to go overseas to do it. A baby in this country can be placed almost instantly. But second, I would say that when it comes to adoption, it's a heroic thing, but parents have an obligation to support their child and care for them. Even if no one else is available, they have to do it. They can place a child with someone else, but if no one's available, they have to do that. They need to care for their child, whether they're in a rural area and have to wait a few weeks for someone to come to retrieve the child, or if with pregnancy, only the biological mother can care for the child in pregnancy. So she and the father still have a duty to that child. I tell you what, Daniel, why don't you stay on the line, give us your email address. I'll send you a copy of my book, Persuasive Pro-Life. It's my full treatment on the issue of abortion, and I think you may find it to be helpful and interesting. So do stay
Hang on the line there, Daniel. Thank you. 888-318-7884, our number here. 888-318-7884. You are listening to Catholic Answers Live. Trent Horn is our guest. Trent, the author of Persuasive Pro-Life, is a pro-life person himself, as a matter of fact, an advocate for the pro-life position. But we invite you, if you are a pro-choice person, today we've set 2 hours aside for pro-choice people to make their case. 888-318-7884. If you have a reason why you are pro-choice and you'd like to share it with us, we would love to hear it. We'd love to discuss it with you. 888-318-7884.
In what forms does the Word of God come to us? How do we know that the Bible is inspired, inerrant, and complete? Why do we need tradition to help us understand Scripture? Doesn't the Bible teach that it alone is sufficient for salvation? In 20 Answers, Scripture and Tradition, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, examining the first and most important issue in the Christian faith, the manner in which God has communicated to us the saving truths of the gospel. 20 Answers, Scripture and Tradition is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
Did you know you can access Catholic Answers Live right from your phone or other mobile device? Download the Catholic Answers Live app today. The Catholic Answers Live app, available now on iOS and Android.
Every Catholic has heard the challenge. How can you believe that? Don't you know the Bible says? It's a challenge we have to meet. If we can't reconcile apparent contradictions between Scripture and Catholic teaching, how can our faith survive? And if we can't answer our Protestant brothers and sisters, how will they ever come to embrace the fullness of the faith? In Meeting the Protestant Challenge, apologist Carlo Broussard gives you the knowledge and tools you need to answer 50 of the most common Bible-based objections to Catholicism. Be prepared to give an answer. Order your copy of Meeting the Protestant Challenge today by calling 844-239-4952, visiting shop.catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
This is Dr. David Anders. Does the problem of evil keep you from believing in God?
Join us for Call to Communion tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Trent Horn is in studio with me. Our number 888-318-7884. It's a chance for pro-choice people to call and let us know why you are pro-choice. We really think that the conversation is productive. We genuinely think the conversation is productive. We don't try to just win arguments or crush people here. We try to hear your points and have the conversation because we don't think anybody else is really having the conversation. You never turn on, CNN and they're having a legitimate, actual conversation about what the science says, about what philosophy says, or even a legitimate conversation about what religions and religious people have to say about life. They would rather just do the kind of the horse race stuff. You know, there's this many pro-life Supreme Court justices and that many pro-choice, or this many pro-life congressmen and this many pro-choice congressmen, and that kind of lazy reporting instead of actually getting into what is actually going on and having a conversation about the meaning of these things. And we want to have that conversation here. 888-318-7884 is the number to call. 888-318-7884. I do want to share, just before I go back to the phones, from Brad off the air. Are you willing to compromise on contraception so that fewer abortions have to happen?
It depends what Brad means by that. Are you willing to compromise on contraception so that fewer abortions have to happen? I'm not sure what he means by that. I'm definitely not going to promote the evil of contraception in order to merely reduce the number of abortions that take place. That would be like saying, would you be willing to promote violent pornography if it was shown there was a causal link that it reduced the number of rapes that occur?
Yeah.
I would say that, well, no, because one ought not do evil so that good may come from it. And I'm also skeptical, just like I would be skeptical of the use of violent pornography to reduce rapes. I'm skeptical about the use of contraception to reduce abortions. It may be that there is a statistical link there, but once again, we shouldn't do evil so that good may come from it. I also worry, as Pope St. John Paul II said, that contraception creates a kind of culture of death or an anti-parenthood mentality, so that it inoculates within people the idea. William May and other Catholic moral theologians have put forward an argument against contraception, saying contraception is wrong because it's anti-life. That while it does not take the life of a human being, it does express a profoundly anti-life attitude towards a human being who would come into existence. So I just wonder, if we're promoting this attitude, how good is that going to be for the children who do come into existence? It reminds me, Sai, once I was at university, Colorado University in Boulder. So CU Boulder, a bastion of incredibly responsible people. No, there are good people at CU Boulder, very smart professors there I've engaged with. But every year they're known for a ritual of engaging in herbal relaxation, as we'll call it.
Oh,
yes,
that's like a school thing.
School
activity.
Something they did a lot every April 20th. And I remember I was there around this time period to do a pro-life outreach, and I talked to a young man, and he chastised me for being at this pro-life outreach on CU Boulder, and said, if you're here against abortion, why aren't you passing out condoms so people don't get pregnant? And so what I said to him, just quickly to divert the subject, because I didn't want to get to debate contraception at that moment, I said, well, why should I? At the University Health Center, there's a bowl of condoms there for free for any student who wants to go get them. And he said, I shouldn't have to walk all the way to the campus health center to get condoms. And I'm thinking, if you are not responsible enough to walk 200 yards to get condoms, how responsible could you possibly be as an individual for a child you bring into existence? So it's mind-boggling to me that how are we promoting a solution here when we're just creating an entirely new problem? The goal of pro-life is not to reduce abortions per se. It is, indirectly. The goal is for abortions to be reduced because people recognize it as a moral tragedy and evil that ought to be outlawed and then avoided as much as possible. That's what pro-lifers are trying to express. And so what I tell people when they say, well, why aren't you for contraception? I'll reply this way sometimes, how does me giving someone birth control, contraceptives, how does that facilitate my mission, which is to instill an attitude in them that they don't want to kill the unborn?
Yeah. Right.
My mission is not to reduce abortions per se. I do want them to be reduced, absolutely. But my primary mission is for abortion to be outlawed because people realize abortion is wrong. It's a crime. So how does me giving someone contraceptives, at best, it does nothing to help it. At worst, it hinders it. That's how I feel.
Brad, thank you for that. A whole bunch of folks on the line. Don't worry, we're going to work our way to all of you. Thank you so much for your calls. It's an opportunity for pro-choice people to tell us why they are pro-choice today. Why are you pro-choice is our question for each caller. 888-318-7884, the number. Alex in West Virginia, why are you pro-choice? Hi, Alex.
Hello?
Hello?
Hi, Alex. You're on the air. Why are you pro-choice?
Well, I think it's a good avenue to take for women who have no other options to go through. Because I think something that people don't talk about in the argument is the fact that it costs, a good few $1,000s to have a child. Even if you put it up for adoption, you still have to pay the hospital, several $1,000s just to have the child, as opposed to, a smaller fee for the abortion. I think it would be a much easier option on a family who probably couldn't afford to raise the child themselves.
Okay, so Alex, your defense of legal abortion is you're saying that abortion ought to be legal because choosing to not abortion entails financial costs, like paying to place a child for taking care of a child, raising them, even placing them for adoption. There are some costs that are involved. Though I would say the costs involved for placing a child for adoption are incurred primarily, if not absolutely, by the couple who is adopting the child, not the birth mother who is placing the child. But even if you were correct, I don't think that works with abortion. I'm just curious. We don't have to go down this road if you don't fall into this mindset. But do you think it's worthwhile right now, because we're dealing with this pandemic, do you think it's worthwhile for the government to establish these shelter-in-place orders to keep people from dying from COVID-19, even if it costs people money and some people might lose their jobs and things like that?
Well, to be honest, the shelter-in-place order, I think, is poorly executed. I think they could have figured out a way to severely optimize the way, everyone's having to stay at home. I don't think that's a good option. I think, people who've already had the virus, they have the antibodies. They're immune to the virus once they've had it and recovered.
Okay, well, here, I don't want to, Alex, the only reason I brought that up, I was just curious, because Cy and I were mentioning about some people who are super duper gung-ho about the lockdowns, even if it results in economic problems for people. So I was just curious if you're in that camp, but I see you're not. So let me then continue on with this, with your reasoning here. I have a problem with this. What's hard for me is because what I hear with the argument, because when you say things like a woman shouldn't be forced to have a child, I agree with that. I agree that nobody should be forced to become pregnant. Nobody should be raped. Because for me, the phrase have a child refers to conception. But my thing is, if you are pregnant, you already have a child. So you can't say, well, I'm allowed to end my child's life because if I were to let this child continue living, it would cost me money. I would say parents have an obligation to take care of their children and not directly end their lives. So that's the crux for me, which is hard. I agree with you. No one should be forced to become pregnant. But just as you can't kill a 2-year-old just because you don't want to go through everything involved with placing them for adoption or raising them, I don't think you should do the same to an unborn child. They're just younger and smaller, and we should treat them the same. Does that make sense? Do you see where I'm at least coming from?
I see your reasoning, but what do you say to the crackhead who couldn't raise a child and probably doesn't know how to put a child up for adoption, and would probably, give the child some brain damage, and it wouldn't be able to live a full life anyway? What would you say to that?
Well, Alex, let me respond to that hypothetical with another one. I grew up in the Southwest, and there's a lot of meth labs, stuff like that, and I've heard stories of parents being arrested who run meth labs who have kids there, like toddlers, that are already addicted to methamphetamines or already been poisoned by it. So, let's take your person who is addicted to crack cocaine or a meth addict. What if they had a toddler? And imagine that toddler's already addicted to crack cocaine, the toddler's already addicted to meth, the toddler's not going to get adopted, they're going to be in community foster care for years and years and years till they go out on the streets and probably end up doing drugs. And I know this will sound like a ridiculous proposal, but just humor me here. What do you think if people said, look, this toddler, this 2-year-old child of this crack addict or this meth head, this 2-year-old child's got no future ahead of him. Maybe we should just pump him full of morphine, let him die, send him to God. That's that. Do you think it'd be wrong to kill a 2-year-old child of a crack addict or a meth head for that reason?
Well, I think to send them to heaven would be a good thing, if they're not going to have a good time here on earth.
Alex, let's rewind a bit. So you're saying it'd be okay to kill a 2-year-old who is in an abusive situation?
I wouldn't say kill them. I would say, peacefully send them to heaven, with the morphine and, make it peaceful for them. But
right,
but have a good,
No, but Alex, so let me hear what you just said. So if you're talking about they're alive and we make them dead, what's that called?
Well, that's called murder. But I wouldn't be murdering them. It would be sending them to heaven into the afterlife, where they would be, received by God and, forgiven for their sin.
Okay,
and that would be a much better thing instead.
Well,
but the way they get there is you have to murder them first.
Yeah.
I mean, that seems pretty clear. You can't send a person to heaven without murdering them.
Alex, would you agree we shouldn't kill born people to send them to heaven? I think you agree, right? Like people like you or me?
Sure. But
Okay.
I mean, they would still, they would still go to heaven, and their life in heaven would be eternal and, far better than their life on
Well,
earth.
let me give you an example. I mean, Cy Kellett here is a super holy guy. I'm sure if somebody walked in and killed him, he would probably go to heaven. Cy is
Right away.
my co-host here, sitting
Yes.
right next to me.
Right. Straight there.
Cy would probably go straight there. He's a
Yep.
super holy guy.
No problem.
But it'd be wrong for someone to kill Cy Kellett,
Yes,
right?
it would. Yes, it would.
Yeah. So I guess what I would say there, and we'll have to move on here, Alex. Just as it'd be wrong to kill Cy or me or a 2-year-old, we get into a really, really, really dangerous situation when we say it's okay to kill people if they're suffering or they're having a difficult life. Because then when that's the case, there's nowhere to stop on that slippery slope. That was the mentality behind the Nazi Holocaust. Started that way with the euthanization and killing of disabled people. Other Holocausts or brutalities throughout history have started with, well, we think it's okay to kill people if. When you start with that mindset, and you see, it just doesn't stay with abortion. That's why when I talk to people about this who bring up these pragmatic arguments for abortion, such as children who are in abusive situations, the logic naturally flows to the born. And so you either have to honestly accept it or come up with ad hoc rationale to partition off born children from unborn children of this regard. My response is to say we ought to treat them equally.
Alex, thank you for the call. I have to say, you probably call me a communist or a socialist for saying this, but one thing that Alex started this call with, something that I actually feel sympathetic to, that a woman gets pregnant and she goes and has the baby, even if she gives it up to it for adoption, it's going to cost her a lot of money. I feel like society should take care of the cost of hospitalization for having a baby. I feel like we could do that. We could afford that instead of charging the mom.
Maybe we should just all do it at home. You just fill up the kiddie pool. I mean,
well, thank you for not calling me a socialist, but I still don't feel like you took my idea seriously, because I am trying to find some common ground with Alex, and
Well, I think that we should provide means to help people to have children and to not, for example, over medicalize childbirth.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. Yeah,
but for me, when we get to the point where parents aren't expected to provide for their children, I think that sometimes I agree with you, Cy, that I would look at this, if we're looking at it from an economic perspective. And if you want more Catholic economic perspectives, I actually just wrote a new book called Can a Catholic Be a Socialist?
Yeah, and the answer is no.
The answer is
and
no.
I thought you were going to call me a socialist, but you didn't.
No.
But see, I'm saying
no, I would
society,
tell you would be a
say that
socialist,
parents
Cy.
are responsible for the kids, and I agree with that.
Yeah.
But we want every child educated, so we pay for public school. Now, okay, well, whatever we might want to say about public school.
And I don't say government schools.
Why
and
can't
you
we
see
just
my language here? I call them government schools. I don't even say government schools. They're not socialist. It would be socialist if government outlawed education and said everybody had to go to a quote-unquote public school.
But what if moms didn't have to worry about the cost?
What if
so she gets pregnant, and it's like, well, one thing you don't have to worry about is the government or the society.
Or paying to deliver a child?
Yeah, get the baby delivered.
What I would say is this. That is a prudential question about who... I will say this. There is a cost for delivering children. It is a medical procedure. There is a cost, and Catholics can reasonably disagree about how that cost ought to be paid. But it has to be paid. You have to pay for the equipment. You have to pay for the doctors.
There's no free lunch.
There isn't. So the question is, who should be expected to pay for that? Why is it the case that we would expect parents to pay? Should we then say parents aren't expected to pay for other pediatric types of interventions? How does that work? How does health insurance work? It does get into larger questions. I personally would be more apt for proposals that drive down the cost of delivering children.
Mm-hmm.
And I would, because for me, it's interesting when we get into these debates, and we'll get back to our pro-choice friends and callers here shortly. When we get into questions about helping the poor and impoverished, for example, I find that many people propose entitlement programs, and they do serve their purpose in some cases. But I find that some people don't understand that one way to attack poverty is to provide people with funds and resources. But another way to deal with the problem of poverty is to drive down the cost of things so that it is cheaper for the poor to be able to purchase them. For example, one reason poverty dropped in the United States, you go back 100 years. 100 years ago, of average family's budget, half of it was spent on food. Food was expensive. Clothes were expensive.
Right.
But now the average family income for food is like 13%. So
that's
something to think about.
100 years ago, you could almost no one could afford a TV.
Yeah, but the most popular thing people were buying, cornstarch. Lots of cornstarch.
I mean, you just watch the corn. You couldn't get the TV, but you could watch.
You watch the corn
cornstarch.
grow and get cornstarch.
All right, we'll be right back with more. Listen, we're open only for callers who are pro-choice. I realize there are callers on the line. I just wanted to engage in that conversation a little bit for Alex's benefit, because Alex, we appreciate the call, even though we disagree with about sending little babies to heaven with morphine. We do appreciate the call. And
we are against injecting kids with poison and murdering them, as I think most of our callers also are.
But that doesn't mean
it's all how you describe it. It's all you gotta. It's all about the language we've seen.
But so if you're a pro-choice person and you'd like to argue your points with us or share with us the reason why you are pro-choice, 888-318-7884. 888-318-7884.
There's only one. Catholic Answers Live.
You've heard that St. Paul Street Evangelization supports hundreds of teams of evangelists sharing the good news. But did you know that some of these teams are public prayer stations? Set up a sign on the sidewalk and offer prayer and encouragement to those you encounter. Everyone needs prayer. Try this new method of witnessing to Jesus. Contact St. Paul Street Evangelization to get started at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Next time on EWTN Live, Tawfiq Bellini shares how the nonprofit In Defense of Christians advocates for religious freedom and protection in the Middle East on the next EWTN Live.
EWTN Live with me, Father Mitch Patwell, Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern on EWTN TV and radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host, trying to find common ground with every caller. Our number 888-318-7884. However, there are some things that, look, let's be honest, we can't find common ground on. We just don't agree about them. But it's worth having the conversation so that we can continue to try to help each other move forward. We're reasonable creatures. Well, most of us are. And it's good to have these conversations. So we're completely holding the lines open for pro-choice people today. If you're a pro-choice person, you're welcome to call 888-318-7884. Our guest is Trent Horn. Trent is the author of Can a Catholic Be a Socialist? That's his latest book, but also the author of Answering Atheism, Why We're Catholic, Persuasive Pro-Life, and a well-known and vocal advocate for life and the dignity of life in all of its stages. Again, 888-318-7884. If you're a pro-choice person, this hour and next are for you. Let's go to Zachary in Atlanta, Georgia. Zachary, your question for Trent. Oh, no, Zachary, I'm supposed to ask you, why are you pro-choice? What's up with the phones? Is Zachary there?
Mr. Zachary?
Zachary in Georgia? No? All right. This happens every time we go to the phones today. I don't know exactly what's going on.
We have his question written here. We could always take that. Maybe we can get him on the line later. 888-318-7884 is the number. 888-318-7884. The idea that I mean, I don't want to pick on our last caller, but it does seem to me eliding certain basic moral facts to say, well, we're not murdering the child, we're just sending the child to heaven. It's just like we're glossing over an important step here. Like, I always felt like that was the case in the embryonic research debate, was like, we're going to use these cells. Well, yeah, but you're using the cells of what? Well, of a human embryo. Well, how are you getting those cells? We're just gathering the cell. Well, no, you're not saying the thing that you're doing. Right.
You have to kill the embryonic human being before you can use the cells. Like, you have to say, and not saying one of the steps is...
This is what we call double speak. It's derived from Newspeak of 1980. George Orwell's book 1984 is a perfect example of this. That notice what our previous caller had to do, and other callers do, and other people do when they defend legal abortion, is they have to twist the English language into such pretzels that
Yeah.
you have to send the dictionary to a chiropractor, that it's completely
Yeah.
just bent out of shape of what it means in order to get it to sound right. Orwell, he wrote a article about this a long time ago, and in it he was chastising Western journalists for using these kinds of euphemisms to cover up what the Soviet Union was doing. Because a lot of Western journalists were totally infatuated with Soviet-style communism, especially in the 1930s through the 1950s, before the system really started collapsing. Thought, this is great, we have to really support this. And they glossed over the gross human rights abuses. This is what Orwell wrote. George Orwell, author of 1984. Millions of peasants are robbed of their farms and sent trudging along the roads with no more than they can carry. This is called transfer of population or rectification of frontiers. People are imprisoned for years without trial or shot in the back of the neck or sent to die of scurvy in Arctic lumber camps. This is called elimination of unreliable elements. Such phraseology is needed if one wants to name things without calling up mental pictures of them. So that is what happens with abortion here, that even people don't want to say, well, it's not killing, it's quote unquote sending to heaven, which would be which in the case of a baptized 2-year-old child, yes, they would be going to heaven. That is true, but they
would be utterly deprived of their life,
of the life
that God intended for them.
Yeah, and I'm sure that child would mourn the sin you had committed to send them to heaven. That our life is a gift from God, and we do not have. He is the one who has authority over human life. We don't.
Let's go to Lindsay. Lindsay, I'm not exactly sure where you are. That's fine. I just why are you pro-choice, Lindsay?
Hi, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I'm so nervous.
Oh, well, you're very welcome here. And our listeners, all 30 million of them, are completely friendly. So you're perfectly fine.
Piece of cake.
Yeah.
All right.
Go right ahead.
Well, I'd like to share, first of all, that I don't necessarily believe that abortion is right. I think that we can all agree that any person in that position has a number of really difficult choices ahead of them. I think that no
you
matter
mean the mom?
What,
not the
mom,
baby,
or the mom and the dad.
Well, Lindsay, could I ask you?
Depending on.
Sure. Could I ask you a question? I think I agree with you. Someone who is pregnant, who did not intend to be pregnant, they do have difficult choices. We could boil it down to two. One would be not having an abortion. It involves a lot of sacrifice to care for a child, to either raise them or place them for adoption. So there's a difficult choice of not having an abortion. And then there's the difficult choice of having an abortion. What is it about abortion that you would say makes it a difficult choice?
Well, I think that what I was hoping to share is that not necessarily everything that's wrong should be illegal.
Okay, I agree with you on that. Not everything, and in fact, in the history of Catholic theology, Catholic moral theology, many saints have also said the same thing, that if you try to get the state to outlaw everything that's bad, you would live in a nightmarish state. For example, imagine if the state said it's illegal to break a promise. So like, hey, I'll help you move on Saturday, and then you never show up. And then, the state could come and fine you or arrest you for not helping your friend move on Saturday. I mean, that would be just nightmarish. So I agree with you that not everything that's wrong should be illegal, but things that are illegal are wrong. So some things that are wrong got to be illegal. So I guess my question for you, Lindsay, would be, how bad does something have to be before we decide to outlaw it? Like, why do we make certain things illegal?
Right.
And so
I think that kind of leads to my next point on the issue.
Yeah, so it's because the music's playing, you got to wait to the top of the hour.
Well, Lindsay, if you stay with us, it'll be a bit of a
I'm really sorry.
little break, but if you stay with us through the next hour, I'll be happy to come back to you.
You don't have to wait an hour, though. We're coming back in
like
just 4 minutes.
5 minutes.
Hang on a second, Lindsay. We'll get back to your call. Thank you so much for it. It's Why Are You Pro-Choice today? Trent Horn is our guest. Trent is the author of Persuasive Pro-Life. Pro-choice people only, and lots of them on the line now. You all made us work to get you to call, but you're here now, and we're going to love the conversation with you when you come back. 2 lines open. If you're a pro-choice person and you want to get on with Trent, 888-318-7884. Right back with more Why Are You Pro-Choice? Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I am Cy Kellett, your host. Trent Horn is in studio, and it's why are you pro-choice today? Only pro-choice people are getting through. Everyone else has got to wait their turn. If you are you got to wait your turn. You got to wait till tomorrow when we do open forum. You can call tomorrow. So all of you pro-lifers out there, we still love you. We just want to talk with the pro-choice people today. Trent Horn, our guest, is an apologist here at Catholic Answers and a prolific author. Among his books, Answering Atheism, Why We're Catholic, Persuasive Pro-Life, What the Saints Never Said. He'd love to talk with you if you're a pro-choice person. 888-318-7884, 888-318-7884. We kind of had to cut Lindsay off, and I feel bad about it.
We reached the end of the show. We were having a good conversation, so hoping Lindsay is still there and we can.
You still with us, Lindsay?
Yeah, I'm definitely here. And Trent, I disagree. I don't think we're having a conversation. I think I'm sharing a point and you're talking over me. So I'd love to have 6 uninterrupted sentences before you jump in, and I'll give you your airspace. Does that sound fair?
Wait a second. We got to debate that for a minute. 6 sentences. It seems like a lot to me.
Lindsay, I'm happy for you to share your point of view, and Cy's job is to help continue the conversation so that it's flowing. So what I'll do is I'm going to defer to Cy, and he can decide when either of us, we might need to move on from a point. So feel free to share what you think.
I feel like 6 is high.
Just gave me a chance to share my point because I don't really feel like I'm getting a chance to make it.
Go right ahead. Cy,
So,
I'll leave it to you to moderate.
What I did share is that not necessarily everything that is wrong should be considered illegal. And I think as Catholics, we've really done a good job of being pro-birth, but we have not necessarily done a good job of being pro-life. And so by the time a woman is at a place where she's looking to make a decision about whether or not she is going to have an abortion, I think that there are a lot of places where we as a society, we as a church community have failed her. So maybe we have promoted in our homes TV shows that do not promote modesty or promote casual sex. Maybe we've allowed a lot of different things and set a lot of examples and not set a lot of guidelines and boundaries in terms of how we are raising children and what morals and ethics we're promoting at home. So I think that by the time that a woman gets to a place where she's in a very, very, very difficult decision, she has a difficult decision to make, I think that we could do a much better job at along the way supporting better decisions to be made. And then
that way, hang on. We're at 9 sentences. I got to let Trent respond. Go ahead, Trent.
Sure, Lindsay. All I have is a question for you. I agree.
That was 9. Seriously,
sure. I agree that we can do a lot as a society to help families, to promote healthy families, and that's not mutually exclusive with my goal, which is to make it illegal to directly kill human beings. So, would you agree with me that it would be justified to have a law that says you cannot directly kill an innocent human being, no matter how young they are?
I think that once the child is born, once the child is born, then you have the right to make that decision. But when the child is still within the mother's body, I do think that it is her right to make that decision. It should not be illegal.
Okay, Lindsay.
I think we should focus more on prevention.
Lindsay, why does a mother have a right to kill her own child just because the child has not been born yet?
Because she has to live with the outcome of that very, very difficult decision, no matter what it is, and arguably so does the child.
Well, the child doesn't live with it if they get killed, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So I think that we should do a good job of focusing on the prevention and the supports beforehand. So we are looking at a Catholic community that is pro-life and not just pro-birth.
Well, why? As there's a wonderful taco commercial online with a little girl who says, "Why not both?" My question for you is, why can't we just help people prevent getting into situations where they have children when they're not ready, and make it illegal to kill children?
Because if we have effectively done the first one, we will not have to do the second one.
Okay. Do you think, though, that regardless of the first one, it should just be illegal to kill children because it's monstrous to kill children?
No, because then we are not functioning as a society. We are functioning as judgmental individuals. We're not supporting families as a community. We are placing ourselves in a place of judgment towards a woman who arguably we have not done our fair share in creating a supportive community for which she was to have grown in the first place.
Lindsay, I don't understand your position. So it seems that you're okay judging pro-lifers and saying they have not done enough to help pregnant women, and that it's okay. It seems like it's okay for you to say pro-lifers have failed morally, in that they haven't done enough to help pregnant women, but somehow it's judgmental or wrong to say that women shouldn't kill their children. That's what I have a hard time with here, that with born people, you could have a mother in a very difficult situation with a toddler who it may be easier for her to kill her toddler. And yet you and I agree we shouldn't kill that toddler. It seems like to me you're just arguing the only difference you've picked. We agree she shouldn't be allowed to kill her toddler. It seems like your argument is a mother should be allowed to kill her unborn child. Seems like just because she has the might, though. It's might makes right. She has the power to do that, and it would just be easier for her life to be able to do that. Would you agree it's more civilized? It's more civilized to say we don't kill children no matter how young they are. Do you agree that's the more civilized position?
Yes, but I believe right now we're talking about a fetus.
What is a fetus?
A fetus is a child, but it is within the mother's body.
So, okay, is it okay to kill children?
No.
Okay, so does it matter where a child lives, whether he's in a crib or a bassinet or the womb? Children are valuable no matter where they live, right?
So crib, yes. Bassinet, yes. Womb, no.
Why?
Because not everything that is wrong should be illegal.
Why are you Lindsay, are you saying abortion is wrong?
Do you think rape is wrong?
Yes.
What about poverty?
I believe poverty is a natural evil, but it's not a moral evil. You can't commit the crime of poverty. You can steal from people. But those things are wrong. I think you shouldn't rape or kill people, yeah.
Right. What about domestic violence? Do you think that's wrong?
I think it's wrong to commit an act of violence against an innocent person. Do you agree it's wrong to commit an act of violence against an innocent person?
Absolutely.
Okay, so domestic violence is wrong, rape is wrong, and abortion would be wrong.
So I'm not arguing whether or not abortion is wrong. I'm arguing whether or not it should be illegal.
Right. Do you think killing innocent people should be illegal?
I think killing innocent people should be illegal.
What is a person?
A person is somebody who is alive. I think that we could say, is a person still a person after they've died?
Would you like me to answer?
What do you think? I think that you have to give me your opinion.
Sure.
I don't think you could give me the truth.
Why do you say that?
Well, because only God knows the truth.
I think only God knows all truths, but you and I can know some truths. So I would say a person is an individual member of a valuable kind. So you have to be alive to be a person, but not. So if you're dead, you're not a person. You're dead. You have to be alive to be a person, but not everything that's alive is a person. Bacteria are alive. They're not people. Slugs are alive. They're not people. You have to be a living member of the human species. And if you are a living member of the human species, you are valuable, you are a person, and you deserve to be protected under the law. And for me, that is true of every member of the human community, no matter how old they are or how young they are, and that would include the unborn. So I just don't see what's inconsistent about that position.
Well, I think that going back to my first point, which is that as a society, if we want to go from what is wrong to what is illegal, then we have to make our global community such that a woman is not going to be in a position to have to make such a terrible choice.
So before we can make it illegal to kill children, we have to change society so people aren't tempted to kill children first?
I thought we were talking about abortion.
Well, are you talking about we are talking about abortion. What is abortion?
So an abortion is when a doctor, by either a surgery or a medication, will support a woman in having a fetus taken from her uterus and expelled.
Okay, well, I don't think that's the correct definition because a doctor helped my two children when they were fetuses come out of my wife's body, and they're still alive and quite well today. So you missed a crucial element of the definition because every day there are women who are 9 months pregnant who have fetuses removed from their bodies with the help of a doctor. We call that childbirth. What makes abortion different from childbirth is that you intend to kill the fetus or kill the small human being. Abortion is a failure if the fetus lives, right?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Then I think I still go back to my main point, which is as a society, as a Catholic community, as mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers and pastors and all of those people who make up our Catholic community, what do we need to do to make it so that no woman is ever in that position where she has to make such a horrible choice? What do we need to do?
Why don't we make it illegal for her to do that and shut down the places, shut down the businesses that are killing these children? Why don't we do that?
Well, that seems like a shortcut.
Lindsay, here's what problem I have with your thinking on this. It is hard for me in this conversation because the proposal you're putting forward, it would be like imagine if it were legal, and it used to be legal for husbands to rape their wives. It was legal. I'm sorry, my mouth's a little bit dry, but here we go. It used to be legal in this country for a husband to rape his wife until like the 1970s. And that's crazy. It used to be legal for a husband to rape his wife. But imagine if people said, well, we can't outlaw marital rape until we give men the psychological resources so they don't make this choice. I would say that's ridiculous. We should make it illegal for men to violate their wives in this way. Much the same way, we should make it illegal for parents to kill their children. That's to me, that would be the end of the situation there. So I think unfortunately we've reached just a bit of an impasse in our discussion. I don't want to take away time from other people that are waiting on the line to be able to talk. But I think for our listeners, I think that they can make a judgment here based on which proposal they think is more civilized. Should we just simply make it illegal for people to kill children? Or should we say it's okay for you to kill a child because we failed to give you certain kinds of resources to help you in certain situations? Well, actually, no. Lindsay, I have one more question for you. Shouldn't we, no matter what resources we give or don't give to parents, shouldn't we just expect them not to dismember their children? It's not our responsibility to keep parents from killing their children. Shouldn't we just expect parents not to do something so barbaric?
Resources.
Excuse me?
I think it is about more than just resources.
Well, here's the question. Shouldn't we just expect parents to not kill their children?
Well, I think that we've agreed that parents are not to kill their children.
Right.
I think that we were talking about abortion.
And
I don't think we're talking about murder. I think in every state in the United States that it is not legal for anyone to kill a child.
Mm-hmm. Well, but we agreed though. What is a fetus?
Right. So now we're talking about abortion again.
Right, but we agreed earlier a fetus is a child.
Yes, and we also agreed that domestic violence is wrong, that rape is wrong, incest is wrong, poverty is wrong, a lack of education is wrong.
Lindsay, let's go back. They're not equally wrong. Those things are not equal. Rape and not giving money to public schools are two very different things. You and I agree. We agree. So let's not change the subject. You and I agree killing children is wrong.
Hundreds of complex interactive variables that are on.
Okay, Lindsay, unfortunately, I can tell here you don't want to have a conversation, which is very sad. Because I wanted to be able to talk with you, but you keep changing the subject and moving away from it. So I will try one more time. Do you agree killing children is wrong? Yes or no?
Absolutely. Killing children is wrong.
Okay, now my next question. Is a fetus a child?
A fetus is inside the mother's womb, and so it is both the child and the mother. It is not a child on its own. It is both of those.
How is a baby its
together.
own? How is a baby its own mother? It has 50% of the mother's DNA, just like you and I have 50% of our mother's DNA.
Because it cannot survive without the environment of the mother's uterus in order for it to sustain life outside of it.
So the mother.
So therefore, you cannot take care of the baby without taking care of the mother. They inter-are.
Okay, so because the child is totally dependent on one person, that person gets to decide whether the baby lives.
Well, arguably, the child is dependent on all of us.
Well, from a biological standpoint, it's dependent on his or her mother. So your position seems to be, it's wrong to kill children, but a fetus is a special kind of child we can kill because they're very needy. Is that your position?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I'm just going to leave it right there, and our listeners can decide between our two views. Which do you think is more civilized? My view that all children should be cherished and protected under the law, or Lindsay's view that it's okay to kill some children because they're very needy and we can kill them because they're just needy and helpless. I'll let our listeners decide which view they think is more civilized. So thanks for calling.
We got to go to a break. Lindsay, thank you very much. Why are you pro-choice? Our topic today, if you are a pro-choice person and you'd like to call and talk with Trent, 888-318-7884.
Hang on, we'll be right back with more Catholic Answers Live.
The Aquinas Writing Advantage program is part of Homeschool Connections' set of online courses for your Catholic homeschool. Homeschool Connections' website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Underwriting for Catholic Answers Live is provided by Real Estate for Life. Real Estate for Life connects homebuyers and sellers to real estate agents while supporting pro-life organizations. On the web at realestateforlife.org.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
Every single day, I get to help our listeners of the Sunrise Morning Show wake up, find out what's going on in the church and the world, and then walk with them as we all seek to grow in knowledge and love of Jesus Christ and the Catholic faith. I mean, how could it get any better?
The Sunrise Morning Show with Anna Mitchell and Matt Swaim. Tomorrow morning, 6 Eastern on EWTN Radio.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Why are you pro-choice this hour? Only pro-choice people allowed to call. We don't lie about who we are. We are pro-life Catholics, but we love having conversations, and you're welcome to call 888-318-7884, 888-488-7884. Sometime maybe we'll have not today. I really don't want to have this conversation today, but sometime, because I want to go back to the callers, but sometime we'll have a conversation about people who are trained to call and the little things that they say that give them away as people who have had training in how to make these calls. But not today. We won't have that conversation today. Let's go to Zachary in Atlanta, Georgia. Zachary, come on. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm not a trained caller. I've been waiting patiently because I really feel like you may be the only person that has ever answered this question. I've had it for a long, long time. It's the only thing that I'm on the fence, undecided in the pro-choice arena.
Sure, go right ahead.
In the Bible, in the Old Testament, it has a part, I'm sure you're probably familiar with the bitter water
Yes.
of the tabernacle floor. That's when a man suspects that his wife has committed adultery and is carrying the baby of the adulterer. And I'm paraphrasing, I don't know it like by heart, but I remember saying that he suspects her to be pregnant with another man's child. He could go to the priest at the tabernacle and ask the priest to give his wife the water off of the tabernacle floor, the bitter water.
Right.
And I don't recall it saying what should happen. I think it's just that he offers it to her. She'll either drink it or not. Before I let you chime in,
sure.
I've thought that if a woman probably did think that she was carrying the child, she would be more likely to drink the water. If she was sure that it was her husband's baby, she's probably not going to drink the bitter water. But I think that's really, really relevant to that scenario in modern times, because that's extremely, extremely difficult scenario. And when it comes to the Catholic faith, I really wanted to hear you answer this, like what you thought should happen in that moment, because undecided, and I don't know necessarily whether or not that may be the only scenario that I think that I certainly am not going to judge a woman in that scenario, and a family that would be broken up because of that, and I don't really know what to think.
Well, Zachary, let me just move in here. Some people cite this passage in the book of Numbers as evidence for abortion in the Bible, and it's not a good passage to draw that from. It's from Numbers chapter 5, verses 11, I think, through 31. That's right, Numbers 5, 11 through 31. And it talks about a husband who has a spirit of jealousy come upon him, and he suspects his wife of being unfaithful. And so he brings her before the priest in the tabernacle, and she drinks the bitter water from the tabernacle. But all throughout the passage, it says something that the Lord will do. So it's not some kind of a abortifacient or a poison. It's merely a kind of sign or instrument that God uses for a judgment, that if the woman has been faithful, no harm comes to her. But if she has been unfaithful, it's vague. It may not refer to abortion. It could just refer to infertility. It uses the phrase, the Lord makes your thigh fall away and your body swell, and a curse will pass into your bowels and your thigh will fall away. So this may refer to some kind of miscarriage, but usually if that happens, the text would be clearer. It probably refers more to causing infertility in a woman who's desperately trying to become pregnant. So I would just say here that for this is a limited law to be applied to Old Testament Israel. It was just a way of determining if a woman had been faithful or unfaithful. If she were faithful, no harm would come to her. And if she were unfaithful, she received a divine punishment, something that was restricted into the Old Testament. But what I would say is that some people take this and say, even let's say it did refer to abortion, which I don't think it does. Even if it did, some people say, look, God allowed abortions for unfaithful wives. In this case, why not let abortions be legal today? That's not what's happening here. Even if that were the case, which once again, I don't think it is, God is making a judgment, would be making a judgment, and the abortion is a punishment. The death of a child is a punishment. But just because God in the Old Testament could cause the death of an unborn child as a punishment for sin doesn't mean we have the right to kill unborn children. Much the same in the book of Samuel, David, God kills David's infant son as a punishment for his sins. But that doesn't mean you and I have the right to kill infants just because God ended the life of David's son as a punishment for his sins. Once again, God has the right to take human life. We do not. But this passage in Numbers 5, I don't even think it refers to abortion. I think it refers to infertility as a punishment for adultery. So does that make sense?
No. For one, I'm not saying that this is like an advocacy for abortion of other types. I was trying to be specific.
Okay.
I wanted to know your thoughts on this issue relating to abortion. That's what we're talking about. Like, if a woman commits adultery and is carrying the child of her adulterer,
right?
You're saying that you even said here that you're not sure whether or not it's talking about abortion. It's certainly not talking about fertility. I don't know what you're talking about when you said that. If it says the fetus is like somehow not going to live or something.
Well, Zachary, let's return to this when we come back for the break, and then I'm happy to go through it with you. So let's return to this when we come back.
Okay, Zachary, I hope you can hang on. We'll be right back with more Why Are You Pro-Choice today with Trent Horn, 888-318-7884.
How can the Eucharist truly be Christ's body? Does belief in the real presence mean that Catholics are cannibals? Do the Bible and early Christians support Catholic teaching on the Eucharist? In 20 Answers, the Eucharist, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, helping you deepen your own appreciation for this most precious sign of Christ's enduring presence in the world. 20 Answers, the Eucharist is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com today and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
Everybody's favorite Catholic outer space delivery pilots return for their greatest adventure yet in the brand new graphic novel Weapons of War. Fresh from saving the solar system in The Truth Is Out There and saving the timeline of salvation history in The Big Picture, Brendan and Irk land in a magnificent domed city on Mars for what is supposed to be a simple shuttle job. But soon they find themselves caught up in a sinister assault on faith and freedom. Will Mars be lost to the enemy? Brendan and Irk's only hope for the flight is in the power of God's sacramental gifts. A totally new kind of Catholic resource for apologetics and evangelization, The Truth Is Out There series combines the visual excitement and quirky humor of graphic novels with solid popular philosophy and theology. The result is a series in which everyone from teens to adults can find accessible answers to questions about God, the soul, true happiness, and much more. Order your copy of Weapons of War today by calling 844-239-4952, by visiting shop.catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Dr. David Anders here. Where is purgatory in the Bible? Why confess my sins to a priest?
Find out more tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern on Call to Communion.
Now, back to Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Why are you pro-choice? Our topic this hour. So if you're a pro-choice person, you're welcome to call. But I got to ask you to. We spent a lot of time with Lindsay, and with a few callers, we spent a lot of time. But there's quite a few pro-choice people who want to get on, and we got to.
Yeah.
So let's move. We got to hear people out, but I want to make sure we try to give everybody a chance here by the top of the hour. Zachary was on the line when we went to the break. Zachary, you still there with us?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so Zachary, let me make sure I clarify one or two things. One is my understanding of what numbers 5 means, and the other seemed to be your question was, do I think abortion is okay if the pregnancy resulted from adultery? Was that what you were referring to?
Not necessarily saying whether or not it's okay. Like, listen, I'm pretty much with you on most things. I am undecided. If you're looking to change somebody's mind about something, you could do it right now with me. No one has ever answered this question, and technically you haven't answered it yet. I want to know whether or not whether or not God would let it happen in this like kind of horrific scenario.
Whether God would allow.
No one has ever. Well, I mean, think about it. Like if a woman was going to go and drink off the floor of the tabernacle in this exact scenario, and it's pretty obvious that it's saying that it could lead to her miscarrying. I mean, you said it yourself. I'm saying that in the scenario that a faithful husband has a wife that commits adultery and is carrying the adulterer's baby in modern times in the United States, you can imagine how that would go. You know, if she carries the baby to full term, I figured you get into like you should adopt that baby, right? Or but whose rights are it when it happens? Is the adulterer going to get the baby, and is he going to come into their life now?
Well, like. Zach, we'll go back to Numbers 5 here. I mean, I wish I could talk longer. As I said, we have a lot of people. Aside from leaving Numbers 5 out of this, it sounds like you're saying abortion is okay in the case of adultery in the modern sense, in the modern times.
Because of Numbers 5, I don't know. You don't know.
Okay. What I would say is...
no one has ever answered it in my entire life. Like, they always dodge around it, and they say, oh, let's try and make Numbers 5 out to be something different so that we can continue to say that, continue to not answer the question.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get what your objection here is. Are you saying that what's happening there is wrong? You object to what is happening in the text?
I mean, I know, like, strangely, this is way too close to home, but I can tell you this, that, like, that is one of the most horrific things that can happen to a family, okay?
Adultery?
And
sure.
No, not adultery. Not just adultery. Adultery is awful.
Right.
People can get past that. But the fact that a woman is carrying the adulterer's child, that's the most, like, obvious, like, nightmare that has happened to millions of people. And I just don't know what to think about this one.
Here's what I would say, and we are going to have to move on. First, I would encourage you to go back to Numbers 5, read verses 11 through 31, and count the number of times the passage talks about a woman being pregnant. The answer, it's 0. This passage never mentions the woman is pregnant once. The punishment she receives for being unfaithful, it just says her thigh will fall away and her body will swell. So it's inconclusive at best. But number 2, what I'll say from what you're saying, I would say a child, that adultery is evil, rape is evil. A child is never evil. A child can only exist. A child can only exist in this world because God has willed for that child to exist. That child could not exist if God did not say, I want you to be brought into existence. Now, that doesn't mean God condones every way a child comes into existence, but any child, whether they were conceived in marriage, in promiscuity, fornication, adultery, rape, any child, no matter how they came into the world, it is good they exist because they are a child made in the image and likeness of God. They deserve love and compassion, and the last thing they deserve is to be killed because of the crimes of one or both of their parents. Absolutely not. You go back to sacred scripture. Who is the wisest man in the Old Testament? Who is the wisest man in the Old Testament? Solomon. Think about Solomon, who's fathered through Bathsheba and King David, through that sordid affair. So I would just say, Zachary, if you would like, I'm appreciative of your call and that you're really close to us on a lot of things. And if you need more to sort out from this, feel free to email our apologist line or to call back during the open forum, because I would definitely like to help you move through this, and maybe you need more to move through this particular section, Numbers 5. But I will say ultimately, especially if this is hitting you personally, and I don't know how that is referenced in your life, I would just say to offer this to God and just remember every single person is valuable no matter how they came into this world, and we ought to cherish them as such. And no matter what, they exist, and their destiny is heaven, and our job is to get them there and to get there along with them.
Thanks, Zachary. Got to move on because we want to get to all the pro-choice folks who are kind enough to call us. If you're a pro-choice person, this hour is for you. Trent Horn is our guest. Our number is 888-318-7884. Up next is John in Lincoln, Nebraska, listening on Spirit Catholic Radio. John, why are you pro-choice?
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I am pro-choice. I used to be pro-life, but I am pro-choice because I do believe it is a woman's choice. The child or the fetus is a part of the woman's body, and that's just the way it is. Okay, economically, if a woman cannot afford it, okay, this is my main reason. All right, if she cannot afford to raise a child, deliver a child, raise a child, take care of it all the way up till it's 18, and I'm talking medical expenses too. Okay, then there's no reason why she can't have an abortion. There's no reason why she shouldn't have that option. And if the church does not support universal health care or Medicare for all, what business does the church have getting involved if they're not going to help, even by, say, voting for these options or voting to fund a child? It takes a village to raise a child. Am I wrong?
It takes parents to raise a child, John. And of course, parents have to work. They have to interact with other people in society. But I would say that you and I can agree that parents have moral duties towards their children. And so sometimes parents need help to carry out those duties. Like if a father wants to provide for his children, he has to go out into the village and get a job and work. It's hard to just do it on your own. But I think that while parents do need help from the community to raise their children, we can expect mothers and fathers to not kill their children. They don't need our help to not kill their children. They just shouldn't kill their children. Does that sound fair?
Oh, it would be fair. It would be fair if we lived in a fair society, a fair world, if people actually cared, if Catholics could get out and vote and say, we want babies to survive, we want them to live, so we're going to provide health care for children all the way up till they're 18 or whatever. That would sound decent, but I still am not going to agree with you because it is a woman's choice.
Well, John, let me ask you this. Question. Let's say a woman loses her job and she has a 2-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old, loses her health care benefits, loses her job, and she's having trouble caring for this 2-year-old, 4-year-old, and 6-year-old, and the 2-year-old's just frankly getting on her nerves. Should she be allowed to kill her 2-year-old? Because you know what? We don't have health care, Medicare for all. So should she be allowed to kill a 2-year-old that she can't care for?
No. And I see where you're going with this. But should the Pope get up and say, Catholics, we need to do something about this. Let's vote for universal health care. Let's vote for Medicare for all. Let's take care of society. Let's see the abortion rate drop.
I think he does, actually. John, I think the Pope we have now does that.
He probably, no. John, my question is, so we agree it should be illegal to kill a 2-year-old?
I see where you're going with this.
Well, just it's a yes or no question.
I'm not all about. There's no. No. Look, if the child or the fetus is connected to the woman's body, it is up to her. Okay, it's up to her. It's her choice.
So actually then, John, let me ask you this question. Let's say, because you're talking about economics to justify this. Let's say a woman is super wealthy, like Kim Kardashian or something. She's got millions of dollars. Can easily take care of a child. She's got millions of dollars. Should she be allowed to have an abortion if she wants one?
I would imagine it's still her choice. It's still her choice.
So the whole Medicare for all thing, that's just a red herring. That's just to distract from the issue. You think abortion should be legal for any reason whatsoever.
Is you look at the reality of the situation, what rich woman wouldn't want to keep her child? Okay, there's a lot of poor women out there, single, young women.
Maybe they don't want any more children. They don't want any more children. So let me ask you this to make sure we get your position right. Is there any kind of abortion you think should be illegal?
Look, if someone goes up and assaults a pregnant woman with a baseball bat and she has a miscarriage, I don't know. You want to call that abortion? We can call that abortion. I guess that should be illegal. That's not really her choice, is it?
Okay, so if someone kills a wanted baby, that's murder. But if it's an unwanted baby, it's okay. So your position is whether it's wrong to kill someone depends on whether they're wanted by others.
I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. You're kind of going into a gray area here. There are no unwanted babies. I wouldn't call them unwanted. Every child is wanted, but the reality is you got to face economic choices in today's world. And if this is what I'm trying to tell you, if Catholics really want the abortion rate to drop, you get out and you vote for something along those lines, health care for children all the way until they're 18.
Do you, John? John, let me ask you a question. Do you want abortion rates to drop?
At this point, I'm so frustrated with with the Catholic Church and everything that you guys preach and your hypocrisy that I could really care less. But I thought I would just voice my opinion on your radio show today. So thank you for letting
No,
me
John, don't hang up. I just have one.
day.
No, John, please. Okay.
No, he's still there. He didn't go.
Okay, John, why are you so mad at the church?
Mad at the church? I think I said disappointed.
Okay,
disappointed in the church.
What are you disappointed with?
Do I really need to go into this? Do you really want me to go into this on your show? I think we could have just called it good right where I was at. I mean, there are plenty of reasons why people should be mad or disappointed or whatever with the church. If, whatever you want, however you want to phrase it.
John, I don't want disappointment and anger to weigh your heart down. You seem like a good person. I don't, and you know what? I guess we do have to go to a break here soon. But here's the thing: it's okay for you to feel angry about things, and it's okay to feel frustrated about injustices. And I would encourage you to seek out what's good. I would tell you abortion is not good. We shouldn't seek that as a solution to anything. But I and everyone else here at Catholic Answers and the people who are listening, thousands of people, I'll ask them right now to pray for you. Please pray for John and Lincoln. His heart is, he seems, there's disappointment in there towards the church. I'll tell you what, John, I'm disappointed at the church right now. I'm disappointed by a lot of things. I'm disappointed by clerics. It seemed like it's a day job they're punching into. I'm disappointed by bishops, some bishops who are total cowards, and I feel like they need to step up. It disappoints me and it makes me angry. But I will tell you this, John, I miss receiving Jesus on that altar. Now, I'm not leaving until I get to receive him again. Because he's God and he made this church and he made you and me for eternal life. And so I might be mad, but I'm never going to let that anger keep me away from Jesus. And I'm not going to let it keep me away from his church, even when there are people in the church that make me mad. Because if I was objective, I would see I am probably one of those people who make other people in the church mad. I know I do. I know I make people mad online all the time. So yeah, just John, I hope you're on the line. I hope you can still be with us. If you leave your email address, I'll send you a copy of my book, Why We're Catholic. And I'll pray for you. I hope our listeners pray for you. And something for you to think about, that ultimately what the main point here is: God exists. He loves you. He loves me. He made us. He made every baby in the womb. And he wants all of us to get to heaven and be with him. And I think we can work together towards a goal like that. So if you're on the line, give our call screen or your email. I'll send you a free copy of my book, Why We're Catholic. Otherwise, I'll ask our listeners to pray for you. So you don't have to have so you can at least have a neutral attitude towards the church and not be saddled with anger and disappointment or anything like that. So I'm grateful you called in, and stay on the line. And if you give us your email address, I'll send you a copy of Why We're Catholic. So thanks.
Right back with more Why Are You Pro-Choice on Catholic Answers Live.
Stay with us for more Catholic Answers Live.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
EWTN is now on Twitter. Get short, timely messages from EWTN on your computer or cell phone. It's easy to stay up to date on a wide variety of topics: pro-life news, Vatican announcements, catechesis, apologetics, the latest EWTN programming, and more. You can link to EWTN on Twitter from our homepage, or go to twitter.com/EWTN. At work, at home, at school, and on the road, stay connected to your world with EWTN's Twitter page.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Trent Horn, our guest, and Why Are You Pro-Choice is our topic. Thanks so much to everybody, every pro-choice person who called. We're going to try to get to every call before we finish the hour. Before I go back to calls, however, I have to really Not just have to, but really want to, because I think Father Sebastian Walsh is one of the great priests and one of the great explainers of the faith. Not just defenders of the faith, which we're committed to explaining and defending the faith, but just making the faith kind of come alive. Like, oh, I understand now. There's very few who do it like Father Sebastian Walsh, and his first book with Catholic Answers is out. It's called Secrets from Heaven. Hidden Treasures of Faith in the Parables and Conversations of Jesus, where he does meditations on the parables and conversations of Jesus and really introduces you to the person of Jesus in a remarkable way. It's not a political book. It's not a polemic of any kind. It's really an introduction to Jesus through the words of Jesus. And right now, you can order a copy of it over at Catholic.com and get 25% off. Just use this promo code. This is just between you and me. Lamb, L-A-M-B. I'm guessing they chose that because behold the Lamb of God. Jesus is the Lamb of God. So I don't think you will be at all sorry if you order this book, Secrets from Heaven, Hidden Treasures of Faith in the Parables and Conversations of Jesus. I think it's just the book we need. We all need it. A great book to keep you company each night through this time of the virus. And just head over to shop.catholic.com, put in the promo code LAMB, and you can get Secrets from Heaven at 25% off. All right, why are you pro-choice? Our topic this hour. Up next, Jacob in Wisconsin. Jacob, why are you pro-choice?
Hello. I was wondering. Hi, guys.
Hi.
I was wondering why because I'm personally more split on the legal aspect of abortion rather than the actual, whether abortion is like murdering a baby or not, because I think I do acknowledge that it is murdering a baby, but when it comes to the legal aspect of it, where it's what are we going to do about it legally, I was wondering what you guys' position on it in that regard is.
Sure, Jacob. What I would say is that it ought to be illegal to kill innocent human beings. Like, if we think about crimes, like what are the crimes human beings commit against other human beings? The most serious crime you could commit against another human being is murder. Why is murder the most serious crime? Well, because it deprives someone of the most valuable thing they have, their life, their future, a life and a future like ours, as the philosopher Don Marquis would say. So I would say that, murder is the most serious crime there is in the books, easy. And then I would say that crime, all human beings should be protected from that crime. And I just don't put any exceptions on that. Any human being should be protected from it, including those human beings in the womb. And so in order to do that, we would outlaw abortion. And then how that's prosecuted in different areas, the way the law is applied or the punishments, whatever it may be, they're going to differ. But the main point that it's illegal to kill human beings before and after birth, that's something that I would be very resolute about. So would you like any clarification on that, or?
Yeah, I would want your own personal opinion about the punishment.
Yeah, sure. What I would say, what punishment should a woman receive for having an abortion? I would say it depends on the circumstances that are involved. I think that we don't have a uniform punishment for crimes because, it really varies. You could have a woman who kills her abusive husband, like a husband who is abusive but not legally abusive, but just right at the threshold of abuse, and she kills him, and she might get a very lenient punishment. Then you have a woman who might kill her husband to, get his life insurance. She would be punished really severely. So for me, I can't say, I would just say this. Parents should be punished for killing their children legally. No, it doesn't matter how old the child is. Parents should be legally punished for killing their children. But just as we take into account the mental state of parents who kill their 1, 2, or 3-year-old, and it's going to vary based on the case, I think we would have to take that into account with the issue of abortion. But I would just say parents should be punished for killing their children, no matter how old or young they are. But it's going to depend on the case, what they would receive, because there's a lot of circumstances that are involved in every individual crime. Does that make sense?
Well, you're kind of bypassing what I'm really trying to get at, which is that what what I'm trying to get at is that people, especially pro-life, are arguing from the sense of, too many times I've seen this, is that they're arguing from the sense of, well, this is an unborn baby and it's murder, right? But because their argument in the sense of, okay, what would you do about it legally, is so like it's so loose, that this is why I think that the left, or that the people who are pro-choice, always win, because their argument is, yes, it's a baby, and I have a privilege to kill it. And they go through, right, they say that, and because I think people who are pro-life...
So, Jacob, would it be more persuasive to you if I had just said life in prison is the punishment?
I think at that point, I think at that point that would be too much. I think the problem is that are you saying that women who kill their children, or women who get an abortion, should get life
No. What I'm saying is, if I had proposed that answer, would that have been enough to assuage your objection or concern? But in actuality, it would have raised another objection that the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Because when people ask, here's my problem with this concern. When people ask, what should the punishment be for abortion? Well, that's like saying, well, what should the punishment be for homicide? What should the like I might ask you, if a wife kills her husband, what should the punishment be? The honest answer should be, it depends, right?
Well, yes, it depends in the sense of, well, if it was self-defense or not. But my case is that the problem that I see this, and I'm talking about realistically, is that once you apply a right to a given group, it is extremely hard to take that right away. We see this in Hong Kong right now, right? You have all those rights being stripped away by the Chinese Communist Party in Hong Kong, and they're protesting, and they don't want to give those things up. And that's what's going to happen. And ultimately, when you try to apply laws and say, okay, we're going to punish this, no one's going to apply those.
Well, Jacob, let me jump in, because I don't mean to interrupt. We just only have a few minutes left. What if I said this? Here's what the punishment should be for abortion. We don't have something like this in the U.S., but they have something like it in England. We should just take the punishment for infanticide. In a lot of regions, infanticide is a separate crime from murder. People who are guilty of the crime of infanticide usually aren't punished as much as those who kill full-grown adults, because they're under mental duress or coercion or, whatever it may be. So I would just say, just apply the current punishments for infanticide to feticide. And that would satisfy me in many jurisdictions. And the infanticide laws take into account the mental states of postpartum women, things like that. And I think that would be fair. So what do you think of that?
The problem is that my main issue is policing morality, and I don't like the idea of telling people that you can't do basic biological things like having sex, and saying that, and not being able to do. I mean, I know that there's a responsibility, but I know that.
Jacob, we already have a law like that. Like, we have a law that says you can't have sex with someone that doesn't want to have sex with you. We already have a law like that.
Well, I'm not talking about people who don't want to have it. What I'm talking about is because what I think too much is that in Iran there is morality police. And you have people, ridiculous, over-the-top stuff that's just honestly not. It should not even exist in this current world. And you have stuff like that, and I get the sense that people will go, that they don't necessarily understand the grasp of what they're doing.
Okay, well, Jacob, we're unfortunately at the end of our show. So what I would say is, you're right. We shouldn't punish people for trivial offenses disproportionately. But I think we agree, like morality police, not for trivial things. But when someone commits a gravely immoral crime like rape or murder, they ought to be prosecuted and punished based on the circumstances. And that's true for born people and unborn people. And we just ought to have a civilized society that recognizes that. So I hope this is helpful for you, and I'm glad you're able to call in.
And thanks to everybody, all the pro-choice callers who called today. We do appreciate your calls. Thank you, Trent Horn, for your time.
Thank you, Si.
You can find Trent Horn's book just about everywhere. It's called, wherever you order your books, it's called Can a Catholic Be a Socialist? He's got a whole bunch of other books as well. And tomorrow, 2 hours of open forum with Trent Horn. 2 hours, open forum. Oh, no, Tim Staples. It's Tim Staples. Sorry,
tomorrow.
Trent, didn't mean to scare you.